The empirical baseline is alarming. According to the Inspectorate of Government, Uganda loses over 9 trillion shillings that evaporates annually in the shadows of corruption and systematic graft. Internationally, Transparency International's index reports that Uganda caught the position of 148 out of the 182 nations as of 2025. Now, these numbers don't just speak. They are making strong accusations. And yet the machine of the scandal keeps breathing uninterrupted. However, the 2026 presidential inauguration and oath, a proclamation of Chisanja no sleep, has triggered an unprecedented institutional earthquake. Just within weeks, the executive net has shattered the state's most fortified power centers, forcing the exit of the then Speaker, Anita Among, and ending in the direct arrest of senior parliamentary administrators. From a 31 billion metropolitan CCTV syndicate to a trillion shillings procurement swamp at the Ministry of Works, the big fish are finally facing the music. This morning, we sliced through the normal optics to audit the actual motives behind this sudden judicial frenzy. Also, we are witnessing a genuine historic dismantling of the architect of impunity, or this is just merely a tactic, post-election purge that is treating symptoms while shielding the real architects. On the Media Roundtable today, we are ready for you. But first, the president seems to be very angry, and ever since he took office, he's serious. So I thought that we could just take you a little bit more about what has happened since the president swore in. Now, on the 12th of May, 2026, Museveni was sworn in as president of Uganda and really pledged tough anti-corruption enforcements. And we've seen that act. Let's just look at from the 19th to the 20th of May, 2026, he actually instituted a probe in Parliament. And that we all saw on our screens when Parliament became a crime scene. Officers searched the Speaker leaked investigation, expanding into different officers, and that has eventually gone into netting senior officers at Parliament. The Speaker, Anita Among, still remains under house arrest according to some sources. May 23rd, 2026, the president started a CCTV funds investigation. It was really mad. Think about this. 31 billion shillings in a corruption scandal that is yet to be investigated and concluded. Let's look at other corruption scandals that the president is focusing on. On the 29th of May 2026, 3 senior internal affairs police officers were sent on forced leave. Think about that. And we also remember the permanent secretary as well was sent on forced leave. Let's continue. Early June 2026, Parliament probe widened, and the investigators are looking into payroll, procurement systems, and SACCO funds. Well, we've all seen, we heard that Chris Obore took home about 5.3 billion shillings in a space between 2023 to 2026. That's quite a big hefty. We'll certainly have to take a deep dive into that. The late June 2026 Works Ministry investigation begins into the MPG Expressway. The president there really getting angry that the architects changed the route of the road because they had bought themselves expensive plots, and compensation became really crazy. That budget rose from just 700 billion to over trillions, and the president really was mad. Consequently, the PS of Works and 3 engineers were suspended from work, and on 2nd July 2026, 7 parliamentary administrators were arrested. Now, all these things continue as the president says, you know what, I've had enough of corruption, and I'm not going to tolerate anything like that. Let me just speak a little bit more about the project. Yeah, this is the road I was telling you. The works escalated from 600 billion shillings to about 1.3 trillion shillings. Now, the parliamentary SACCO saga continues with losing about 10 billion shillings in charges alone. Crazy. We're going through a time. What a time to be alive and witness all this. But let me talk about the people who have been affected by all these investigations. So far, we've had parliamentary administrative officers arrested. We have engineers who have been arrested. We have permanent secretaries who have been arrested. We have parliament directors, administrators, and the net continues to widen. Well, on the Media Roundtable today, we take a deep dive into that, giving you some perspective, analysis, and context to this big story. Is Museveni's administration serious with corruption, or are we just having another show-off? I'm Solomon Serwanja as NBS celebrates 18 years. I'm back home and excited. And so excited because I am hosting a show that I birthed and a show that I'm really proud of. And a great panel awaits for you. Let me just really introduce my panelists today. I am really privileged to be having Daniel Lutaya. Daniel Lutaya. It's good to have you, man.
Good to have you back.
Yeah, Daniel Lutaya is back on the, at the Next Media Park. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm back home too.
Yeah, back home too. I remember Dan and I used to do investigations on the investigations desk. Derek Wandera, it's good to have you. Derek Wandera is a senior editor at the Nation Media Group. Daily Monitor, it's good to have you, my brother.
Always a pleasure to be here, and this is the first time you're hosting me. I'm so excited, super
Really?
excited. Yeah.
Oh.
We've done work together, but
Yeah.
you've not hosted me.
But
on the show.
welcome aboard. It's
Very.
really good to have you. Timothy Chemonges, Parliamentary Watch. Timothy, it's really good to have you. You guys do an amazing job. I want to give you your flowers.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
And today we can't wait to feed off your knowledge
Absolutely.
in as far as the parliamentary graft and scandal is concerned. So really good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Solomon. Good to be here, and greetings to our viewers and fellow panelists. Thank
Great. Sisr Simon Muyanga Lutaya, a name that requires no introduction. It's good to have you, Senior.
Thank you very much, and it's nice to be here. Happy to be home together. You have only forgotten one thing, that you now have two Lutayas on set. So you must introduce that one is a senior Lutaya, the father of the younger.
All right, gentlemen. I must say that this is not only a manual panel. We invited some ladies, but they certainly said that they won't make it. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Media Roundtable. I'm Solomon Serwanja. Let's get the show started after this. We are celebrating 18 years on air, serving you with journalism, entertainment, and sports. We have come of age. 18 years, NBS. Congratulations. We want to say a special thank you to all the staff who have been here building every block, right from, the founding fathers of NBS and the people who made a contribution to this great station. We've seen it evolve. We had giants. I've been told that something big is coming up to celebrate the people who came before us, people who built the foundation on which we stand. So shouts out to everyone. King Carissa for steering the board. Thank you very much for your great leadership to this station and for growing NBS beyond just a television station to the media empire of East Africa. So thank you, King Carissa. I need to give you your flowers, and to everyone who has made a contribution. I'm Solomon Serwanja once again, and to you, our very viewers who have been with us for the last 18 years, you are the stars. Thank you for watching NBS. Thank you very much for always believing in the journalism that we do, and thank you for always supporting and giving back to us, those that have downloaded us for mobile and those that watch us across all the different platforms. Thank you. I can't say thank you enough to everyone, from the Askaris to everyone. Anyway, I'm here to talk about the Media Roundtable and the top stories that make our headlines. So, firstly, gentlemen, we are going into corruption scandals that have really hit us. From the 1986 post-war purge to building up, we had the Global Fund scandal. Gentlemen, we had the OPM scandal, we had the Iron Sheet scandal, we now have the parliamentary scandal. The what? The bicycle scandal.
Public service or Ramafa.
Scandal after scandal. I think it's only important that we start with the latest, and then perhaps we'll walk back in time and find how we can, put some context to this. The parliamentary scandal. Timothy, I just wanted to begin with you because really this is your focus of journalism. This is your focus of attention in Parliament. What we saw yesterday was the IGG pouncing on the 7 officials, including Chris Obore and 7 others, and big accusations there. This is a story that has been broken by different media houses, including, by the way, Agora, that did an amazing expose. We need to give them their flowers. They have been amazing. Shouts out to the Agora team for doing such great investigative journalism that really brought this issue to our forefront. And of course, all of us who made a contribution to that. But let me ask you, Chemonges, what do you make of these arrests?
Thanks, Solomon. I think that the direction that the country is taking is a good direction. I think that this was a long-awaited action that the citizenry, but also the aspirations of the people expected, especially when resources are involved and people that are expected to, behave better, execute their mandate better, within the purview of many of these corruption scandals. But I think for me, two things stand out for me. The first is the institutionalization of what is happening. I like that the IGG seems to be at the center. Otherwise, there were also other options that would have been explored. What we've seen recently, the basement approach, which does not align properly within the legal framework. But to the extent that the approach that IGG and the ability of the IGG to pursue this, it aligns with the law, but also it exposes the matter better. The second one is exposing part of the mess that has been happening in Parliament, and the impunity that lies in there. I should say that these matters were not in isolation. It's not that the previous parliaments, the 10th and the previous parliaments, were not involved in this mess. I think it's the magnitude, it's the pomp, it's the manner of how the 12th parliament handled their business. Because what we saw in the 12th parliament was a rudimentary way of dealing with the resources, a rudimentary way of dealing with power. In fact, for purposes of management of Parliament, you'll notice that the technical team were all subdued. The commission, which should have provided leadership, were equally subdued. So it became a one-person's show. And as it is, absolute power corrupts absolutely. You saw the increase of resources in the different offices, and for me, this is a good step. Again, juxtaposing with what's happening within the different entities in government, it speaks to the fact that there is progress being made. But also because justice many times must not just be done, it must be seen to be done. I think the citizens, from those that I have listened to, are happy. Now, whether these prosecutions will eventually lead to absolute, like the individuals being found guilty or not, I think that the move by itself is a positive move, and that we can only hope that the scope can be widened. Because we've seen the technical teams, the directors and those that were responsible for different departments. But if the net is widened a bit, then we can be able to get a full picture of the mess that has been there. So the clerk's office, which is primarily the accounting office of the institution, seems to be so far safe. We hope that that office can equally be brought to the purview of what is happening, because at the end of the day, they are responsible for what is happening, they are approved, and they were in the know of all the decisions that were being taken in Parliament. You move to aspects of the building that we've, the annex building that has been in construction since 2018 or thereabout. Resources have been dispersed annually. We've seen resources being put there and no action taken. And so I think that there seems to be a slight shift in terms of the tolerance of corruption, both within Parliament and out of Parliament, which is a good thing. And for me, the other perspective really is around how this whole business affects the delivery or the impact on the Ugandans. So we've just had the discussion here. You see that 8 individuals received close to amounts that would equate, or even it's way more than what districts or other entities in government receive. It tells you of how our priorities are mismatched.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Tim. I think, Derek, you've also covered Parliament very comprehensively. What really is amazing to me is the architecture of this corruption. From the budgeting process, the Parliamentary Commission's budget, that I don't know if the committees question it during the formulation of the budget framework paper. It seems to be well institutionalized from the budgeting to the money flows. It is complicated, syndicated corruption. It's difficult. You have to trace it from the budgeting process and how the money lives. And I think Chemongis was saying, you know, all the systems had broken down. It was just a one-man show, you know, take this money out, whether it's through the parliamentary circle or through, you know, the payroll management system, the inflated budgets. It's syndicated corruption, and I'm sure that's something you closely followed. And how these individuals, so far that have been arrested, got this money. I mean, Chris Obore, you know, the reports are, and on the charge sheet, by the way, I thought I would read part of the charge sheet so that we speak from a point of evidence. When you look at the charge sheet that was presented by the state attorney or the DPP, the statement of offense, it just says that Chris Obore, these are the particulars of the offense. Chris Obore, during the period of 2023 to 2026 in Parliament of Uganda, while employed as the Director of Communication and Public Affairs, Parliament of Uganda stole 5.2 billion shillings, the property of his employer, which he had access to by the virtue of his employment. And the case that has been entered is embezzlement, contrary to Section 18 of the Anti-Corruption Act. And of course, we have Adilo Daniel, who is also accused of stealing 14 billion shillings. And that Okema Leonard, accused of stealing about 3.4 billion. These are billions. These are billions. How did all this come up? I mean, we're going into the investigations really, but as a person who has reported Parliament, how did we get to this?
It's a difficult one to go around, knowing how monies have been leaving Parliament. I think there was a time when Agora carried out an expose online, and we came to realize that some of these people actually might have never even taken this money for themselves, but they were just being used as channels through which this money ended up into one person's account. But then I use your account, I use Daniel's account, I use, you know, his account, and then at the end of the day, give you a small token, and then that money is brought to me. And that's what has been happening in Parliament. And I hope, like Chemonge says, this investigation widens deeper, because it's much deeper than we are actually seeing. As people who have been very close to Parliament, it's much deeper than we are seeing. And the person, the clerk to Parliament, should be the first person as an accounting officer, should be the first person to be investigated, because he must be in the know of everything. Now, I want to give you an anecdote. In 2023, I was investigating a matter of 40 million I was given to parliamentarians, just to, you know, to make them happy, to pass a law here and stuff like that. And that's how deep the investigations should go. And I remember that time, I did a 3-part series of a story, and I called Chris Obore for a comment. And Chris Obore spoke to me for over an hour. And I needed I just needed a comment. And he spoke to me for over an hour, explaining things and stuff like that, trying to defend how this money was not from them and stuff like that. So I was doing a 1,500-word story, and I probably quoted him on about 100 words after speaking to me for an hour. So the following morning, Chris Obore called my boss, Tabu, after the story was released. He called my boss and was ranting off his head and stuff like that. So Tabu walked to me, to my desk, and said, "Your man is here ranting, you speak to him, you're the one who did the story." So I got the phone, and Obore was telling me, "Never call on me, never call on me. Never call on me on corruption issues in parliament, because you misrepresented me. You only quoted me for 100 words, and yet I spoke to you." He gave me over 3,000 words, to be honest. I couldn't write all those. Now, coincidentally, that story was nominated for an award. And when I was going to pick the award, Obore is the one who handed over that award. It was Obore who was called to hand over that award on that night. And this has clung to my head and heart, and say the perpetrators of corruption are out there moving about, and nothing is done to them. Now fast forward, when we come to see yesterday, I was looking at videos making rounds, and Obore leaving that van and going to record a statement, but later standing in the dock, I remembered the words that he told me that morning. Never call me. I have never spoken to Obore since then, 2023. 3 years later, we've never spoken. He was a good friend whom I would call for advice here and there. We've never spoken. Now that the long arm of the law has caught up with my brother, I hope this can serve as an example to many of the people who hold these offices. Now, like you said, we who have covered Parliament, we've seen a lot of things that happen there. But you dare say something, we were, chased away from Parliament. As NMG, we were thrown out of Parliament. We were only reinstated this year. And it's because of us writing about some of these matters that are now coming out. I just hope that the people who have instigated this investigation can go deeper, and it shouldn't be a targeted kind of move to certain individuals. I hope it can be just left open, that anyone who falls within the parameters of taking any money or even like stealing any kind of coins from Ugandans should be brought to book. And we hope that this can come to pass. Yeah,
but, Daniel, I just wanted to come to you, Daniel. You run an organization, certainly. In organizations, we put up systems and, systems and ways in the way we do things. Government too does that. How money is appropriated, how money is gotten and received. Basically, there's a system that you follow to get this money. What we've so far seen, according to what we have read and what has been exposed by different, journalists, is that the way the money has been, stolen from Parliament is they use the systems and structures. For example, the corporate social responsibility budget that, Chris Obore, for example, used to get this money out. I'm just looking at the numbers here. Between April 2023 and January 2024, Chris Obore got about 1.9 billion in the CSR budget and used it. Between July 2025 and January 2026, he got another 1.2 billion for CSR activities. Some of which, by the way, those activities never happened. And when you look at the breakdown of the CSR budget, so somehow Parliament plans for CSR, and allocates, I mean, simple ways to get money, really. When you need money, you're like, I'm sure what Dan says, you know, you go to the 30% that of the grant that is not really looked into. CSR, for example, in this case, is a budget perhaps that has been used to get this money. It's syndicated corruption. It is well aligned, Daniel.
I think the first thing is people have to understand that, okay, maybe I need to talk about my district where I come from. So I come from Kayunga. I don't only come from there, but I work there right now. I have business there now. Kayunga's entire health budget is 10 billion shillings. These guys stole more than the health budget of my district, and we don't have medicine in the hospital in the district. They stole, but like they stole more money than a district uses in a whole year, and they stole it between April. If you saw the statistics between April and this, so this is budget corruption. It is not your usual corruption where something is budgeted. So this is corruption that is very difficult to trace, very difficult to track, because ordinarily our systems of tracking, even us investigative journalists, is you look at the budget, you look at the activity that was meant to happen, and then if the money is withdrawn and used for something different, then you can raise a red flag. But here, and this is what some lawyers were telling me, it's possible that these guys may actually walk. They may get out of this without any problems, because this is an item that was budgeted for. So all they did was withdraw money that was budgeted for the activity, and in the narration it is actually showing that it is going for corporate social responsibility, the exact activity that it was budgeted for. Now the problem is if that activity didn't happen and instead this money was siphoned to another person. And that is the challenge. And that is where the mismatch is. But what has changed? And you know, when I looked at the theme that was sent to me for today, and you know, we were saying Museveni is cracking down on corruption. Even in Solomon, in your intro, you were saying Museveni is cracking down on corruption. But what has changed about Museveni? Museveni literally created this constitution, 1995. Museveni has been the president that has created most of the frameworks that we are working with. This parliament, the way it is, the rules, all of these things, he has been in charge. He has been in power. And you tell me that this year, 2026, is when President Museveni called a meeting with Rebecca Kadaga and himself and a few religious leaders and Anita Among, and he had all of a sudden realized that Parliament was spending much more money in the Anita era than in the Kadaga era. I'll also quote Ofono Opondo. Ofono Opondo, I think, was the last person to speak to Chris Obore the day before yesterday, the day before he was arrested. And Ofono Opondo said that Obore told him that this money was actually being used for political activities, but the people that were receiving, the actual recipients of this money, the people who finally received this money and went to, you know, dish it out and buy tomatoes and what, and Range Rovers or whatever they bought using this money, those people did not want to appear on any official documents. You see? So there is a quote that Obore has said this money was actually not used for corporate social responsibility, it was used for political activities. And then I also want to remind you that the president of Uganda pledged to destroy the opposition. So we have seen that in Anita Among's time at Parliament is when the opposition has effectively been disorganized the most. And most of the reasons why the opposition is being disorganized the most is because of money. This one has received this amount of money and we don't like him, he should leave our party. Now he moves with the whole faction, and then people have to get disorganized. And then
You're leaving the name.
the name of the person. You know the person. I'm trying to tread the legal lines very carefully. You see? Because I no longer have Obadiah Ismail and his team behind me anymore. But you see, so President Museveni knew about this earlier and he did nothing. So I think for me, we need President Museveni. I actually believe that this entire crackdown on corruption is not President Museveni's doing, because as a journalist who has covered President Museveni for all the years that I have, at least 15 years of his regime, I've been covering him as a journalist. President Museveni doesn't operate like this. President Museveni forgives corruption. President Museveni, yeah, he will do anything. He will march against corruption to Kololo, but he will not do anything about it. This is actually the CDF. This has the CDF written all over it. He started this whole thing. President Museveni would have called Anita Among and all these people to a meeting at State House, had coffee with them, told them about PDM, and forgiven them. This is the CDF that is actually acting. And because Agora started doing activism around this in 2023, and what did President Museveni do to them? He arrested them. So I think actually President Museveni needs to invite the likes of Grace Achila, Hector Ashraf, these Gen Zs, the Agoras, the Agathas. You need to invite them, President Museveni, to State House and give them a presidential apology. Of course, yes, they need to.
Which
yes,
one is that?
President Museveni, yes,
A presidential apology.
a presidential apology. Of course, see, presidents don't apologize like normal people. Presidents, they shake hands with you, take pictures with you, and say these are very good young people. We want to thank them. But to be honest, President Museveni, and I was listening to a song while coming called "The Monsters We Made." It's by Burna Boy. These are Anita Among and all these directors of parliament that have been arrested are not the monsters that Anita created. These are the monsters Museveni created. Museveni has created this demagoguery in the parliament. The parliament is full of demagogues, and philosophically speaking, Plato expected this of democracy because Plato was anti-democracy. The first form of philosophy that was writing about republic, how to create a republic and how to govern people, was criticizing democracy because of this very problem. Because you find that although President Museveni knew about this earlier, the politics was overriding his will to fight corruption. Because he is still, although he's an older statesman, he has been here for a while, he has, grown the country in leaps and bounds in economics, but he is still a politician. And then here comes his son, who doesn't care about anyone's votes. And that is why we are now seeing action. That's the only reason.
Interesting. Daniel Lutaya, thank you. The senior Lutaya, I just wanted to come to you. One of the functions of Parliament is oversight, right? That's why we have the Parliamentary Accounts Committee. That's why we have COSASE. We have all this. Who plays oversight for Parliament that all this can go away unnoticed? And do we worry that the Auditor General has raised these issues and the Parliamentary Commission has perhaps shied away from discussing them? Who really plays oversight to Parliament? I mean, these are billions of shillings that just get away unnoticed, and, another financial year and all this.
Oh, Solomon, I must be a proud father because my son has just answered the question you're asking. While Parliament plays an oversight role, there's somebody charged by law to do an oversight all over all institutions. So when that person is not doing it, all these other institutions will not do that. But I want to remind the country and salute our retired Justice Faith Mwonda, if you remember. When Faith Mwonda was told to go to Parliament to be vetted, if you remember, she refused to go. And she said, these people are corrupt. They are the people I'm investigating. And you want them to vet me. She did not go there. And that's how she lost out the high gig job and went back to the bench. That's some good years ago. Now we know that by this, and like Chamonga said, this corruption is not only in this parliament. There's been corruption of some sort all through. And maybe this one is out because of the magnitude. Why did the other people not speak out? Because the people above them were not speaking out. I think at one time, I'll have to apologize to the country. I, as a senior journalist and politician, that in us supporting the 11th Parliament and its leadership, we were only outside. We don't know what was happening inside. We really supported, a lot of strength. That sometimes I feel like maybe the leaders we knew are not the ones we see today. The actions we see today are not the ones we knew of the people we supported. And we are all taken up. You were only asking who was doing oversight about this. And I'm wondering, how about my senior leaders? People I pay respect to, like Honorable Asman Basalirwa, the Honorable Abudu Katuntu, who are vehement anti-corruption fighters over the years. How did they also disappear that all this happened? Who was behind the speaker or the office of the speaker that all this happened and nobody was raising a red flag except the Agoras? So I think we have to apologize to the country, I particularly, and apologize to our senior mama, Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, because we did not know. She knew this long ago. She talked about it. She told us long ago. She said, no, these people. And we said, no, Mama was fighting a different war. Today is vindicated. We see that she knew what was happening there. So I will agree, like my son has said, that this nature of fighting corruption is not Musevenistic. There must be somebody else who does not care whether you have your votes or not. Somebody who is patriotic. The country comes first. I'm not saying Mr. Museveni was not patriotic. He was in his own way, but I think he's too parental, he's too kind, he's too tolerant, that his tolerance overflows and leads us into this. This man who says he's really the Patriotic League of Uganda has defended them. The patriotism is now seen. Country above anybody. Country above self. These scandals are embarrassing. Really embarrassing. And I like the way the woman was reading the charge sheet. She did not substitute the word. She said, you stole. This one, stole. She was using the word stole. And every time she had to mention the word, it was emphatic. Ekema stole. Stole. And the word stole came out clearly. Meaning there is nothing amazing about this. This is not misappropriation. This is not undervaluation. It's outright theft. Stole. And I do not know who's changed Anita Among. The Right Honorable Speaker. The Anita Among we had at FDC, who was charged with looking for the money to have our party survive. One we thought was honest, cannot be the same person who presided over this. And like Derek said, I do not think that these workers took all this money. Perhaps the accounts were used for money to be deposited to somebody else. But because they wanted to circumvent the law, they thought you can hide under any such laws. And why I'm saying I am proud father, Dan has said what was in my mind. Maybe our friends in the opposition got this man. When somebody said, we have finished the opposition, and proves that in the 12th parliament there will actually be totally nothing. If we had an opposition that we are talking about, they were also not speaking. They are not telling us these facts, and I hope they knew it. I think the leader of opposition now in our country, the leader of opposition in parliament should be Jim Spire Sentongo and Agatha Twaila and the others. If opposition means putting government in check, let nobody else deceive us that are putting government in check. Good. The current leader of opposition today in parliament was also part of the 11th parliament. If this went through the time he was there and did not detect it or did not raise a red flag, then there should be a problem. But like I said, this investigation, the probe, Mr. Museveni's fight against this corruption will only be saluted if it is logically concluded. We have had this excitement.
And I think that will really depend on the investigations that the DPP and the CID does to the core, because they have to present evidence to these allegations to be able to secure a conviction, right? So all eyes will be on the DPP and CID to triangulate the amounts that were gotten from the SACCO and from the payroll, lots of analysis to do and forensics to do, so that they can tie that person to that money. It would also be interesting for us to see who was the last end user of this money. I mean, you get about 5 billion shillings. Did you keep it to yourself? or you said CSR was the money actually given for those activities, or you actually had to give the money to the boss. I think Chemonges also said that it was the breakdown of the
in town
systems.
here. The apartments are all around. You know,
You need to have evidence beyond just the narrative
Kampala,
that
yeah,
we're
everybody.
creating. You know, as journalists, which is why it's interesting. Courts have a similarity with journalists, especially investigative journalists. We go with evidence.
My brother,
Can we be able?
Ugandan thieves are that cheap. They steal today, you'll see what they are building tomorrow.
But you have to actually tie it back to them beyond just the narrative. So it will be interesting to find out how the investigation plays. Listen, guys, we continue with this conversation and we're discussing corruption. I'm Solomon Serwanja. Let's go for a break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Friday, 3rd July 2026. You're watching the NBS Media Roundtable. I'm Solomon Serwanja as we dissect some of the top stories making our headlines today, and our focus is on corruption. Is the president really cracking the whip this time? Daniel is saying it's not like him. He's a politician, so if the memory of Teso comes with elders to President Museveni and kneel and say, forgive our daughter, the president can easily say...
Free advice to Anita Mong. Get the Mori and 100 chiefs from Teso, go to State House, Museveni will forgive you. That's how he handles corruption.
You know, I think that...
But Muhoozi won't.
No, I think sometimes we underestimate Museveni because I think he has had enough, in my view, and I may be wrong, but I'm just saying, he's a guerrilla, he's a fighter. He takes time to do his things. Sometimes, of course, he pardons on people, but I think this time he seemed to be really tired and it's like, you know what, I've had enough, and maybe it's time for me to really crack the whip. I have had enough. So it's interesting to see how things will play out. But gentlemen, let's talk about, we've had several big fish in the past arrested. Showbiz, where they are reporting, they are arrested, they are taken in parliament, they are remanded to Luzira. We keep coming back to court to cover the proceedings. Some cases, for example, remember the Global Fund scandal, some of the ministers were exonerated. You know, some of them were arrested, others were, exonerated. We've had scandal after scandal. We've had some good prosecutions that have ended up in convictions. You know, the OPM scandal, we had the Kazinda, scandal, and all that. So I thought that we could pay attention to the processes of securing a conviction and whether the state is really founded and grounded in securing these convictions in as far as corruption is concerned. Tim, let me come to you. It's going to take the IGG collaborating very well with the DPP and the CID to nail this case, to present overwhelming evidence that can secure a conviction, if there is anything to secure. Because these are allegations until court proves them otherwise. The defense on the other side is also going to be doing a lot of work trying to, defend their clients. Do we have the ability in the DPP's office and the CID and the IGG to investigate this case to its final conclusion to secure a conviction?
Thanks, Solomon. I think that in terms of the ability, in terms of capacity, definitely that is there. Some of my colleagues and friends who work within those spaces, my interaction with them tells me that the evidence is there, their capacity is there. I think what interferes with all this is usually the politics of the day that ends up undermining the ability to patch up most of this evidence. But also because the bar is a bit usually high for matters of corruption. You must, prove significantly. To the extent that there are interferences, it undermines that process. Now, for me, this matter has two perspectives. One, because there are political issues at place, and you have the technical, legal issues. And political issues must be handled politically. And part of that, seeing the recent arrests, seeing the confiscation of some of the materials like the and moving them around the, the town and driving them. I thought that was a good political way of dealing with some of these things. Because at the end of the day, as Daniel says, there's room to deal with this politically, either to pardon the people who have been affected, and the president has come out very clearly that there are people who were suspected, went to him, asked for forgiveness, and they were pardoned. So it means that it's also an option that most of the people who are affected have. Now, the legal way also is there, and unfortunately, the discussions on whether Chris and his team received the money and used it, or it went to the other, to someone else, I think that's a non-starter. Ultimately, the money reached to your account, and for some reason, responsibility lies with you. Now, is there interest to prosecute these matters within our legal framework? I think it's there. We've recently had the Mabati scandal, where we saw the minister actually charged, and now she's in Luzira.
Agnes Nandutu.
Agnes Nandutu. Her colleagues and her comrades who participated in the same process for some reason were left outside. Others were pardoned, and as indicated. So for me, those are some of the indications is that there's been no willingness to ensure that these matters are prosecuted to their final end. Or there has been effort to ensure that you frustrate this legal process. Otherwise, if Nandutu has been found culpable, I don't see a reason as to why Anita Among should be found innocent in this matter. If there is room to ensure that everyone who is involved in the process should be able to be held accountable, there is room. It's just, I think, politics of the day. But also, because there seems to be, again, Daniel says that the credit goes, to the CDF, which is also possible. But I think to the extent that the responsibility lies with the president, that's where I would largely, take the credit. But also to say that the president still has the power to decide whichever way this direction takes. Whether the other players in this sector thinks otherwise, he still has that. He has, the control in determining how most of these things go. And so I think that our institutions have the capacity. Ultimately, it's the politics and the interferences that affect the ultimate prosecution of this matter. Maybe there's just one point that also I needed to say. Parliament has the Auditor General has an oversight role on the institution of Parliament to ensure that they check what is happening, but also do a bit of critical audit on the resources, on all the other things that happens in Parliament. Unfortunately, as it is, the Auditor General is an extension of Parliament, and so they have also been put down there, and so the ability to do meaningful work is greatly undermined. And lastly, it's around this whole power that Parliament enjoys in terms of determining its remunerations, in terms of determining its way of operation. I think as we move forward, most of those should be able to be checked. Parliament should not be able to determine its remunerations. That should be put to an independent entity. We can have a salaries review commission or something of that nature to determine the resources, the salaries of all public servants, so that we do not have situations where the power that is given to, let's say, a commission is undermined as a way forward to also create equity.
Yeah, no, I can't agree with you. I mean, think about it. The parliamentary budget currently for 2026-2027 is 1.2 trillion.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. We're going to be spending 1.2 trillion shillings to Parliament of Uganda, and that money has to be collected from, from URA.
It can fund Kayunga, my district, for 10 years, the whole district, and it can fund Kayunga's healthcare budget for 20 years. The money that we are giving Parliament for 1 year.
Yeah, think about that, and that's what Tim is trying to say here. Parliament, they do anything. They'll say, well, we'll increase the money for cars from 300 million to maybe 400 million, and that, that happens, and they'll increase their emoluments, and like you've said, the Auditor General does their audits, but they present it to who? In the past, I think we've seen, PAC summoning the Parliamentary Commission to appear before them, but also that was for showbiz, and certainly Parliament has been untouchable in the past. I saw you itching with something.
So I wanted to pick from where you said these things are in the budgets. You are now talking about a 1.2 trillion budget of Parliament. And these items are in that budget. Now, I want to remind you again, where are our leaders in the opposition in checking those items in Parliament? Because these items are budgeted. And one of the things we would expect them to do is that. But away from that, I wanted to conclude from what Chairman has said, that the President Museveni, I know, is a master of time. Mr. Museveni has taken us all these years because he masters time and balances events. He knows that if I do this now, it will affect me. One work would split into 3 others and will be overstretched. The way Mr. Museveni has managed to deal with all his generals, bourgeois generals, up to today, that they don't understand him, is his mastery of time. When to do what. When you are all shouting, he's quiet. When you are quiet, he wakes up. You did ask, will the investigation organs, IGIG and the others, be able to do this job? I want to put this statement on record, that if this money, talks about in Parliament, knowing how Anita Mong works, if this money of corruption, as you call it, was a working person, mark my words, if this corruption was a working man, you'd find his footsteps in all the investigation arms you're talking about. CID, IGIG, simply watch the space. I know how they've been doing this. Within Parliament itself, they investigate their accounting arms, internal audit department. They are all there. They must tell us this. But knowing how Uganda operates, follow closely the footsteps of this corruption. And the IGIG's office, and the CID, and other people you think will investigate. The only person who can do this is tell General Muhoozi to do this alone. Let him find another arm, construct it, compose it himself. Do not rely on these ones. These ones,
you don't have strength. You don't have trust in the systems that the state has already put in
there. You may not know, but the footsteps in the CID and the police.
Yeah. Okay. As we conclude on this matter, really, Derek, let me come to you. I mean, all our eyes on this matter are going to be focused on the judiciary, where the cases are going to be heard, where evidence is going to be presented. And it looks like, I'm sure the president is saying, I'm really tired of this. I want these cases to be expedited. Previously, the judiciary would take time to hear these corruption cases, for a while. And along the way, the public loses interest, and then maybe some of them are exonerated quietly, others are brought back into the system quietly. If you to look at what does the future look like for this judicial journey for you?
It's glim. It's not something you sit and have hope in until you probably have seen something being done. And our senior has said the money is going to certainly walk into the judicial systems. This money will certainly reach there, or it has always been there, or it has been there before. And it begs the question on whether or not the entire society is ready for this fight. It shouldn't be a fight if we are saying it's Muhoozi or Museveni. It shouldn't be there. It should be a fight for me, you, everyone around, that we contribute to making sure that we have a corruption-free society. Francis Zake was removed from being commissioner.
Yes.
And does anyone care to know why and where it started from? You know, he was a commissioner, and when they were sharing the commissioner's money, he refused, and he went and told Bobby Wine that, you know, this money, these people here are planning to share this money to themselves. And this money is not accounted for. They are going to get it from the SACCO. They called Mpuga and started questioning him. And that's when that story broke. And I broke that story myself. And they started the entire process of removing him. And everyone was backing who was removing Zake from office. Do we have the impetus as a society to fight corruption, or do we abet corruption?
We're going to go to that, but maybe you and team should help my audience understand. The parliamentary SACCO, I mean, most of this money is going through the parliamentary SACCO. But I thought the parliamentary SACCO is just like any SACCO,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Where people save, where people get money, and they're able to pay it back, you know. How does corruption sneak its way through the SACCO? Just help me understand how corruption creeps through the SACCO and it's used as a vehicle for embezzlement. I just need to get it clearer.
Because all budgets within the real framework of Parliament are audited, and they have paper trail. The only way you can sneak money that's not on the paper trail is through, you know, the parliamentary SACCO.
So how does it work? Like government gives the parliamentary SACCO money?
No.
So
government doesn't give parliamentary.
Take a leaf from ours, the NBS SACCO,
Yes.
the one we had here. I've also had one. You'll contribute your monies, but the organization may also choose to put some money to support you.
Yes.
Perhaps they were putting this money as support the parliamentary SACCO. Otherwise, if it is the remittances of the members of parliament, they would know how much they have remitted, and you will account to them at the end of every year.
Yeah.
We have an agenda.
Tim, you have an insight into this. How does this whole thing work?
Yeah, I guess, you see, SACCOs are into the business of saving and lending.
Yeah.
And the resources in the SACCO are members' money within the SACCO.
Correct.
Now, because of the bureaucracy that is in the mainstream government system, where, you know, if you've budgeted resources, the resources may not be immediate. So the resources are released in a quarter system. Now, the resources are needed immediately. And yet, the only available resources that you need now can only be accessed through SACCO. So you get what is available immediately and repay it through the actual system. So that's why SACCO finds itself in that kind of mess, because of the flexibility and ease in getting resources. So what would happen is, if commission as the commission has maybe approved some resources to go to the commission, so the resources would be borrowed from the SACCO, and it goes to the beneficiaries. Now, when the actual money comes, then it is taken back to the SACCO. So why the SACCO finds itself is because of the flexibility and the ease in which Parliament or the leadership can get money from there. But also I should say that the autonomy that the SACCO has enjoyed over the years was undermined recently. The leadership and the guidelines that govern the SACCO, and most of the SACCOs, is that the SACCOs should be able to exercise some level of autonomy in determining who it lends the money, the interest, the terms. They are clearly set. So what we saw in the 11th Parliament, for many times you would see instructions being given to the leadership of the SACCO to release money as and when. So for example, you would have, and these are examples, so you have the presiding officer going to an event of a member of parliament in their respective constituencies. And we saw there would be 50 million, 60 million that would be given to these members. So these monies were needed immediately. So it is the SACCO that would be a victim in this case. So instruction is given, they release the money, give to the leadership, to the respective members, and eventually, when the monies are available within the parliamentary coffers, then they are supposed to be paid back. So it became an easy tool to use and misuse, especially at the 11th Parliament, when yes, there was money. You have this, let's say, close to 20 billion that you have projected to receive, but they are not there at once. So yet there's an institution here that you would use. So it became a tool, and a tool to use and misuse, especially in the 11th Parliament. Again, a victim of the strong personship that we've seen affecting the whole institution.
Would this be a
Was this members' savings stolen? This was extra funds from the members' savings.
No, I think what he's trying to say
Somebody
is that...
must have put money there.
Yes, of
above
course,
the members' savings.
but the SACCO can actually give Parliament money if it doesn't have money, just like he said, so that money is reimbursed or even comes with interest because it's this. And just that question, and then I'll come to you. Could this then be a small vent through which these people can go scot-free?
No.
Not necessarily. I think that the evidence and the footmarks are everywhere. Yeah. So first, again, in terms of the members' money, but also in terms of so you have excess money. So if you had, let's say, 20 billion to CSR, so you use maybe 5 billion, send it to the SACCO.
Okay.
And you get it from the SACCO. So I think the question is around the accountability mechanisms. And that's where, ultimately, there's a lot of money, by the way, that went through these staff and all these other entities. There's a lot of money that went through. But there's money also that was accounted for, despite the fact that it was not used for the intended purpose. So where the shortfall is likely to be is where the money was not accounted for. Because ultimately, the guidelines of what, say, corporate social responsibility looks like, it's not there. It's really for the speaker to determine. So they can actually decide to give an institution or whoever they want. During the NRM SEC campaigns, I know for a fact there were resources that were channeled to buy Gomeses, to buy merchandise for the beneficiaries. Now it will tell you that it's the same resources that were used. Now, to the extent that these resources were accounted for, you can't hold the comrades that received money accountable. But there were some resources that were not accounted for. But for me, again, is to say that I think that there is a casual discussion on billions. The day Solomon, for example, they ask you to pay 1 billion, most likely you would go back to the village. 1 billion is such a big amount of money that when discussing and dealing with 1 billion, it looks a bit easy. But at an individual basis, it's a lot of money.
Interesting. Yeah. Dan, thank you for that context, because really I needed to understand it very clearly. Dan, Tim has said something that is very interesting. And we're asking ourselves, is there a legal and policy framework around corporate social responsibility? We will get into those details, because they will say, well, this money was budgeted for CSR. And this CSR, it's under the docket of Chris Obore as Director of Communication, which is why he will tell you, oh, I gave 15 million. I saw the breakdown. I think Agora really broke down what the money, he gave 15 million shillings for medical help for Daniel Lutaya, for example. 20 million to support the solar panels of a certain hospital, which, according to Agora, the panels were never bought. So that discussion, that it falls on you to decide who to give the money to. And if you're very good with economics and finance, it's easy for you to say this money was given to so and so to do this. Isn't this? I'm trying to look at the ability of securing a conviction and presenting evidence to this money. before they judge?
There are so many things at play, Solomon. First of all, metaphysically, the politics, the politics of demagoguery is already failing. Is already one of the mitigating factors of this prosecution, because you have to understand who was their boss. Like, who was their boss? Who was this CSR was in the Speaker's office. So I'm not going to convict anyone on this show. I'm not going to put to create suspects that the IGG has not yet charged. Not yet. Keyword yet. So I'm not going to say Anita Among is a suspect, but we have to look at who the office maybe, where the money was going. Now, for judges,
they look at evidence.
They look at evidence, but also, again, the demagoguery comes back in, and the monetization. According to Andrew Mwenda, most of the judges have their children now employed at Parliament by Anita Among. Most of the judges in Uganda. This I'm quoting Andrew Mwenda, who is close to the CDF and probably has that information on good record. Okay? Now, you also have to look into the members of Parliament, because they're supposed to be, like Chemonge said, they're supposed to be both the legal framework and political will to actually convict these guys. And then you are hearing stories of 100 MPs that have been funded campaigns by the same person. Then you hear the sharing, the one of Zake, when he was raising alarms on how the money in the Parliamentary Commission was being shared. So it looks like this lady had created around herself an insulation from prosecution, from political problems, and it had to take Muhoozi to bulldoze her out of power, because she had a lot of power, a lot of control over different arms of government. The only other person who had or still has as much control or influence, maybe. So President Museveni has control, but she had influence. The only other person who had as much influence on different arms of government was President Museveni himself. Even the Chief Justice didn't have a lot of influence on Parliament. So now you have to understand that because of that, because of the politics of the day, there are so many people that are bound to lose from an effective prosecution of the people that were arrested yesterday. So it is not just them that are going to jail. It is people's jobs that are going to be lost at Parliament of Uganda. And these people are children of people in power who can make phone calls. And when politics comes in, you know that the philosophy is that when there is politics in the room, common sense disappears through the windows. So how are we going to effectively prosecute people that were doing corporate social responsibility activities for someone who was number 3 but number 2? Someone who was... Yes, someone who was... You see, Derek is saying someone who was almost equal to number 1. So the influence is still there. It took how long, even after President Museveni had taken over in 1986, how long, you have to find out, how long did it take for the Obote remnants to finally get out of government? Maybe
President Museveni
Muyanga Lutaya will tell us. How long did it take
Museveni blames certain things on Obote?
Yeah. How long did it take for the Obote hysteria to get out, you know, of that house? I'm sure that there are still people in that parliament who believe that she can still make a comeback. And so, understanding all of this, but also understanding that Uganda is a highly monetized political system, which, again, like I've said, the monsters Museveni created, because every time that he wants anything done by Parliament, he sweetens it with the sugar in that tea is always, the tea that they sip is always money. So because he has created that system, a system where the person who has the most money is the one that will get the favors, the person who will be favored most politically, it has, again, like I've said, created a system of institutionalized demagoguery in Parliament.
So you can't take away the politics from the picture. Yeah. And it could have a big influence. I mean, it's just, when you're speaking, it reminded me of Anita Among after passing the sovereignty bill. She's like, Honorable Bua, I told you, give me the numbers. I will give you what you want. So, Daniel Lutaya, you're saying you can't take away the politics. But yeah,
there's something
we will catch it up after that, right?
Okay.
You're watching NBS Media Roundtable, and we are dissecting this story for you, getting into the audits and now into the judiciary. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Well, about 2 minutes to 9 p.m. My producer is saying, Solo, wrap it up. But we're still having fun here as we celebrate 18 years of NBS. You're watching the Media Roundtable. My name is Solomon Serwanja. We're putting context to some of the big stories making headlines. And we are all focusing on the corruption and how the president is saying, look, I've had enough and I am going to act. Gentlemen, speaking of acting, the president has come out on several scandals, including the 31 billion shillings CCTV scandal, telling the PS at the Ministry of Internal Affairs and some top police officers to be sent on leave as investigations continue. He also highlighted about the inflated Mpigi Expressway really coming up from 600 billion to over $1 trillion, and in his letter he says, look, you guys diverted the road, bought plots, and compensation is becoming expensive. This is corruption. Matter of fact, the numbers are quite telling. Of the 9 trillion shillings that we lose annually to corruption, the IGG says most of it goes through infrastructure, right? So let me just speak your mind on this. The president really, Simon Muyanga Lutaya, sir, the president really getting really serious with this, and he is personally writing these letters. He's asking the institutions to do investigations and return to him. He seems to be serious this time.
Yes, I would believe he's serious, but like Dan said, it is very hard to follow Mr. Museveni's way of fighting corruption. For example, on the Ministry of Works corruption, this inflation of the cost of that road was done by UNRA, Uganda National Roads Authority. And in the letter that I should show you after here, the acting head of UNRA, Engineer Isaac Wani, wrote and confirmed to the contractor that this job is accepted. Please go ahead, implement the changes. That was when they were at UNRA, even before they got to Ministry of Works. And if you know for sure as an investigative journalist that UNRA wanted to conduct themselves as if they did not belong to Ministry of Works. Now, when you tell me that the Ministry of Works, the PS, Mr. Bagea, is out, and Engineer Isaac One is still in office, then I do not understand what type of corruption you are fighting. Because the architect, the one who okayed the inflation of the rising the cost from 600 billion to where they are, to 1.3, was Engineer Isaac One. And this is evidence. And in one of their meetings at UNRA, they blamed him and one Patrick Muleme for and they said there was a personal conflict. This is written, this is evident, a personal conflict between Isaac Wani and Patrick Muleme related to the delays and the change of these designs. These are the people in charge of the designs, not Patrick Waiswa, the PS. Now, when you start from the PS, and the real culprits are here, you are the same way telling me the story that in Parliament you are arresting all these young people, and among the supervisor and the Adolf Mwesige, the accounting officer, are still out. You're simply diverting me. So I will only believe in Mr. Museveni's fight on this road, because whatever he's saying are facts. The money was paid out, the design was changed deliberately, but the real people who did this job, only 2 of them have been picked. The real architect, the one I'm telling you was acting executive director of UNRA, not Minister of Works, who sanctioned all this, is out. He's actually in Japan now. He's flown to go and sign another contract for this, another road. So how are you fighting corruption and bypassing us? You come and say, oh, the Media Roundtable had issues. You pick Solomon, you pick Derek, and you say, but Lutaya and Lutaya, no, those are, the Lutayas had no problem. We have all contributed to today's media round table. So this selective application of the law, maybe Mr. Museveni is told the wrong information about these scandals. The real people are always left out. And the people at the extreme end of it who are even simply implementing decisions from mistakes made by this are left out. So even the minister, I have no faith that the Minister of Works scandal, that the president has suspended PS and some engineers will work out. Because the real people who did this are UNRA. First, go back to UNRA. Put all the UNRA people accountable. Those who were acting at that time accountable for these actions. How did they change the design? How was it inflated? When did it rise to these levels? The minutes are here. I don't know whether people understand and start reading these things. The minutes are here. Within the ministry, within UNRA itself, they said, no, Mr. Mleme and Mr. Wani, you misled us here. And this is what he said, personal conflict. You know what that means? Because of personal conflict, we are into personal conflict. And because of a personal conflict between Mleme and the Wani, government has lost another 900 billion extra on this road. And they're not talking about that.
Yeah.
They're not showing PS suspended, and then 2 engineers sent on leave.
Yeah.
The corrupt are misleading the president. The president needs to leave this to I don't want to go too much into that, but maybe Mr. Museveni should allow for all this corruption thing. Let General Muhoozi handle the corruption thing. Mr. Museveni concentrate on security and politicking. Surely.
Interesting. Sisr Simon Muyanga Lutaya, they're saying that the CDF should handle corruption, but also manage all, you had mentioned that, I think it's Lutaya who said he doesn't have to lose any votes, that he should concentrate.
So the all roads contracts. All roads.
He has actually mentioned.
And now I agree, let him
all
handle.
roads should be. In fact, a source told me that they have placed a military attaché at the different construction projects, and they're awarding, projects so that there is oversight. But I want to come to you, Tim, real quick, because the producer is telling me we're running out of time. But you want to give it to President Museveni, who really doesn't act out of hearsay, who believes in the institutions that he has set up, including the anti-corruption, State House Anti-Corruption Unit, the DPP, the CID, and he's saying, investigate and come back to me, right? So it is the role of the investigating agencies to say, step aside as we're actually investigating. The president seems to be really, this time, since he was sworn in, very serious on the issues of corruption. What do you agree with me, or you think it's just politicking?
Absolutely. And contrary to what Lutaya Senior indicates, I think for me, whatever is being realized can still be realized within a legal framework. We need not to, overrun our legal framework or our rule of law to realize whatever we would want. All that can still be realized with this. And again, we just need the political will. Because the evidence is there, information is out there on what Parliament has been doing, what Ministry of Works and Internal Affairs, and other parliaments. Whatever is happening, the evidence is there. What we just need is to operationalize that. Whether it's the CDF, whether it's the president, you just need the goodwill to align that, and action will be taken. So for me, it's within. We must first of all frontline what our legal. We can change it. We can change it to fit within what we want, but let's align to that. What we are seeing in Ministry of Works, in Internal Affairs, definitely, it's a good direction for the country. Anything to ensure that our resources as a country are utilized well, people in offices of responsibility act accordingly, but also impunity is managed, I think is welcomed. As you see today, ultimately, for me, the yardstick of success is seeing action being taken. Whether it materializes in prosecution, I think for me that would be a surprise. But at least to the extent that I see individuals that are in responsibility being put to action. I think that for me there is success there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Derek, the CCTV scandal, 31 billion shillings. The president saying that officials at the Uganda Police Force ICT department should be, investigated, including those at the Ministry of Internal Affairs. The president is also focusing on that. What do you think would come out of that?
This should have happened a long time ago, because we raised red flags on the same. I think around towards 2021 elections, and that's when the installation of the CCTV cameras happened by the Chinese, and Huawei was always like at the forefront. A lot of scandals came up, and we red flagged some of them and stuff. The president seemed not to see, but I hope that he actually acts. My only problem now,
actually, his attention is on the maintenance. Yes. And according to the allegations that we've so far received, is that the company that was contracted to do the maintenance, they refused because they wanted, the top officials in government at the Ministry of ICT and at police wanted a kickback. Yeah. I think it's Dilani. I think the company is called Dilani, and they said no, we will not give that kickback.
It's very disturbing. My only problem, and it's a topic that I had touched on earlier, is that the way we now want to handle corruption, now we instead are advocating for mob justice instead of, like Tim says here, instead of using the right channels. The way you can see that a home is disorganized is when someone just comes up and says, no, let this one take over this, and yet there are set systems. If we want things to work, to be realigned, let's be systematic. We know we have a system breakdown. So are we solving the problem, or are we looking for the root cause, or are we dealing with symptoms? We are only if we say, now let Muhoozi handle this, let Muhoozi handle this. At the end of the day, Muhoozi might handle everything as a person, which is not legally right. Let's follow. Let's set systems. Let's work on the systems than working and empowering individuals. Let's empower the systems, which are sustainable. These are sustainable.
We have been
empowering systems
for 40 years.
And building systems. You see, during even this recent crackdown on Parliament, I saw individuals who came up to stand up against the Honorable Anita Mong. I saw the Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, Mao,
Alion,
Akiki. They came out in full force and stood themselves and said, we want this person to account. And this is how society can come together to make sure that we fight. This corruption story in Uganda cannot be fought by individuals. Just individuals alone. I think let us fix the systems. Let us follow the law. And when we follow the law, it is going to be sustainable for us. What if Muhoozi gets a problem along the way of fighting these things? Because it's an individual who is going to stand up thereafter. We need to support him. We need to support the systems.
Daniel, you have the final say at these systems, political will, but also Muyanga Lutaya is saying those systems have been there for quite a while. The CDF has come into the picture and is fixing things. Where do you fall?
The systems are not spoiled. The systems are designed to fail. The systems are designed to fail because when the systems, for example, the judicial system or the parliamentary system is the way it is, then certain unpopular bills that the president wants to pass will pass. That's the reason. That's the reason why the system is the way it is. If President Museveni is the #1 consumer of intelligence reports, let me give you two scenarios. President Museveni, if today he received an intelligence report that there are rebels in West Nile who are entering the border of Uganda, how long do you think it would take him to handle that? Very quickly. If he received an intelligence report that there was a certain technocrat in the same region, West Nile, in Arua, who is stealing 2 billion shillings every month, how long do you think it would take him? It's just that there is no political will from President Museveni to fight corruption. Corruption is not his priority. President Museveni is good for security, but bad for the anti-corruption fight. But his son has actually proven that he's very good for the fight against corruption, but he may be not very good for human rights. So Ugandans must choose the pill to swallow. because you must swallow one of them at least. So we either continue with our wonderful security, or we take a person who has some bit of security keeping us safe, and also a lot of anti-corruption will. So the system as it stands right now is not something that I think we can fix in a short period of time, because the corrupt will keep stealing money. And also you have to understand that this, like my senior Lutaya has said, we have corruption has now entered the DNA of Ugandans. Because a Ugandan will even ask you for money just for something that should be free. You know, everyone is trying to get to, you know, we are all trying to steal from one another. Everyone is trying to steal. A border man wants to steal from you. You know, police traffic officers, everyone is trying to get, you know, to steal from here and there. And that is not punished. And then the whistleblowers who are supposed to how do we support whistleblowers? As whistleblowers are supposed to be protected. But the whistleblowers, every time you blow the whistle on corruption, you are the one who is arrested. You are the one who loses your job. You know, these young people who went to march against Parliament were arrested. That's why I said these young people deserve a presidential handshake. They need to get an apology. President Museveni should get some money from his CSR budget and give these young people a presidential handshake, because they did a job that an entire pillar of democracy. The opposition is a pillar of democracy. Democracy runs on having a government in power, an opposition, and the third estate, and the fourth estate rather, and the judiciary. But a pillar of democracy in the opposition kept quiet about what was happening in Parliament until these young people, Gen Zs, some of them are still in universities. I've met some of them, like Hector. Hector, I think, is graduating this year. He's a very young man. He went to jail because he was fighting for corruption. And then in 2026, 3 years later, his president tells him, you know what, Hector, you are actually right, but he has not said, I'm sorry for taking you to jail. These young people went to jail. The government should find a way to say, you know what, young people, you are right about this. We are really sorry. We are going to listen to you more. But the principle is, whistleblowers, we must incentivize blowing the whistle.
Dan, have you read the press?
Okay. What Agatha and the group need is not a presidential handshake. They need an environment to operate.
That will be corruption in itself. If they begin getting...
No, I'm saying that should be
They need an environment where their accounts are not frozen because they are doing their work.
No,
they need no support of any institution. They should operate.
You need to get access to the letter that the president wrote to the IGG to sanction that investigation there. The president acknowledged it very well, the work of James Spire and Agatha Tuhaire. He says, I saw this parliamentary exhibition from these young people.
They are still on bail. They are still on bail. He should give them presidential pardon.
He should. That I agree.
He should give them a presidential pardon.
All right. As we wrap this up, I'm told we are fast spent on time. Listen, guys. Certainly we have an economy that is not in its very good state. The Uganda Revenue Authority is struggling to hit its targets. They're squeezing money, deepening, taxation. The economy is doing terribly bad. Civil society organizations that used to bring in money and employ people have been significantly affected. USID closed, DGF closed, GIZ closed, as told the governance and civil society sector closed. So many NGOs that used to give so many people jobs has closed, and therefore it has affected the tax base. Certainly the economy is struggling. Now, amidst the little money that you collect, when this money is allocated to the Parliamentary Commission to buy the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker cars, of what, 2.4 billion. And when this money is swindled through CSR budgets, and then you come and tax Next Media heavily, it defeats the purpose. And I think it's at this time that the president said, I am not going to allow any corruption in this last regime. Looking forward, I'll give each one of us 1 minute. What is the Uganda you want?
You have talked about that. My for purposes of this conversation, I should also tell you that my media school is down because of taxes. I have actually been engaged with the Uganda Revenue Authority on how to deepen tax education. And I buy into the idea of one of our businessmen, Ham Chigun, who said, if the tax burden was shared by everybody, let everybody pay something, than have only the rich overburdened. And now before you cry for burdening, you hear there are also thieves stealing in billions. So I think we need to agree as a country, before even charge other people, that we have responsibility first to develop our country, but also to put those in charge of our offices accountable to do good business. Financial frugality is for all of us. The thieves are part of us. And you know, you are even talking about what revenue URA is collecting. But there is also one subject that I'm writing about. I'm actually writing a very good report about that every time URA hits their targets, they do not tell us about how many people have run out of business. The likes of Wavamuno, the likes of Sebagal and Sons, and many more. I am actually writing this. I'm going to be spotlighting on Uganda Revenue Authority for 2 months, showing the success you have in revenue collection, but how many Ugandans also have gotten out of business because of this kind of tight collection. That is not their problem, but the problem is with us, that even the little we collect. In fact, yesterday I said, Uganda is not a poor country. I can never say that we are poor. Like you're saying, the economy is struggling. No, the economy is not struggling. If the economy was struggling, people would not steal that. 27 billion, 31 billion, got the CCTV camera, got the means of works of exaggeration. If you collected that money was available. Even my district would have a hospital. I come from a district that has no single hospital like this, no single Tamaka road, Kaliro district. The money that these people stole is enough to do half of what we want to do. So we need to talk to ourselves, even before we cry for Moho's help or Museveni help or so help. I think Mr. Museveni is also overstretched. He has done enough. He has really been here to do this. I was actually challenging him the other day that if he found the economy at $6 billion in 1986, and it is now $66 billion in 2026, and then he's telling us that it's going to somersault in 14 years to 2040 to 500 billion. I've been looking for the president to tell me, what's the magic? Who are the architects of his dream? Who are the civil engineers of this vision? If this was a structure, who are the electoral engineers that you somersault in 14 years from 66 billion, 500 billion?
All right.
But you have moved 60 billion in 40 years.
All right. Sisr Simon Muyanga Lutaya, thank you. Tim.
Two things for me. One, I think that we need to enable people who have done good job, like the Agathas and the rest of us who are supporting the fight against corruption, with not presidential handshakes. Just allow Agatha and the institutions to operate and do their work. Please don't shut their accounts. Do not interfere and suspending their license. Engage and allow these people do their work. If you do recognize that they are doing a good work, don't give them money. They may not be interested in that. Allow them operate, guide, provide legal framework, and enable them to do their work. Two, I think for me, is to the Speaker and all his comrades to support the pursuit of ensuring that we establish a salary review commission to review salaries and all these benefits that public servants receive, so that it's a bit more structured. If we can pursue that, I think it can help to resolve a bit of issues that we are seeing today. And this power that Parliament was given, thinking that this institution would actually exercise it in the best way. But we've seen they have misused it. Can we reallocate some of those powers to an independent institutions to determine how these resources are used? The concept of equity is at the forefront. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Derek.
We are here where we are because the few powerful people are too powerful and more than the law. They are more powerful than the law. Some of them are non-touchables. I would wish to have a Uganda where the law is our bedrock. the people are more powerful than the leaders, and that the leaders seek guidance, but also do know that these people are actually their bosses, not that the leaders are the bosses of the people.
Okay, interesting. Daniel, I wanted you to close on a note that you said something that strikes me and something that leaves me, that the system is not spoiled, but it is, you used some word, broken. I don't know, there's a way.
It is broken by design.
Yeah, broken by design. What will it take to fix this system so that it operates? You know, in the past, why I'm asking this is because the president believed so much in the army, beyond just security. He says, no, the railway is going to be done by the engineering brigade of the UPDF. Like he had, you know, when wetlands, he says, no, the basically will come for you. Like he had, in a way, he said, you know, the army is disciplined, the army, you know, he believes so much in the army, and he believed that the army could come in to fix things that civilians perhaps have failed him on. But let me just flip it back to you. And like you said now, Muyanga is saying, let Muhoozi now handle corruption, you know, because maybe the civilians have failed to handle the corruption, and the system is saying, you're saying has failed to, is broken by design. What will it take to fix those systems to work?
I think it's difficult. It's not a unilateral problem. You see, it's not like a unilateral action that has to be taken. It must be multilateral because it looks like Uganda is in a Nash equilibrium right now when it comes to fighting corruption. It doesn't matter what any of us do unilaterally. It cannot change the outcome anymore. We have put ourselves in a corner where it doesn't matter what any one agency or any one person does. All of us must do it at once in order for us to get out of this Nash equilibrium. Otherwise, we continue being in that same cycle. The reason why we are in this problem is because of politics. Politics has overridden everything. In Uganda, Ugandans fear the only institution that is still feared by Ugandans is the army. It is only the army that is feared. The law is not feared because there are ways around it. It has been circumvented many times. It has been messed up so many times that it no longer looks like an institution that is strong and powerful, because they know that you can change a few laws here and then remove Senyonyi from being speaker, from being a leader of opposition. You can change a few laws here and then we don't have to vote for speaker anymore, you know. People don't fear the judiciary also because they have seen justice not being seen to be done. And yet they actually go to university for 5 years to teach them how to both dispense justice and also show the public that justice is being done. There is a reason why the Speaker of Parliament, in the common law, the Speaker of Parliament was dragged to the seat. And you saw it happening when Oboth was becoming Speaker. The Speaker was dragged because it was a service. It is not something that any MP liked, being the Speaker of the House. Nobody wanted to be a politician because it didn't pay. It was service above self. That is what politics was. Right now, politics is the most lucrative job. It is the most lucrative business. There is no business you can do in Uganda that can earn you more money than being a politician. So we need to get back to the foundations of democracy. If we are following the philosophical nature of democracy and how it started in Greece, we need to come down and make politics a service and not a business anymore. And the people in power should also stop seeing their power as a project. Power should not be a project that you must do it at all costs. You must be in power, you know. That is what will get us back to a balance where people will respect the law, where people will allow the law to work. Not that every time the law holds my hand, I say, let us amend this one that is holding my hand. If it holds my ears, it was designed to hold me in that way.
Okay. I'll just use one more minute, perhaps, to wrap it up with you. There are schools of thoughts that have argued that the Kigali model should be replicated in the pushback against corruption in Uganda. where people fear corruption, where they dread it because the leader has said, you do this, this will happen.
Yes.
You try to corrupt a police officer, they will arrest you. Like, there's a general fear of corruption. And you said that it had transcended to even the border person or to everyone. It has come to the very fabric of our society. I have had people who have argued that the Kigali model should be adopted if we are going to push and fight this corruption out of Uganda.
I'm not. Yeah, even corruption has transcended. Even in the family, you have to give your own uncles something, kitu kidogo, in order to get some favors in the family. But again, like I said, it's multilateral. It must be push on all sides. Like right now, if Mohozi is pushing using the army and arresting people, the lawyers should also be pushing. It must be multilateral. Everyone should be pushing. The journalists, we should be pushing. The civil society should be pushing. Now the problem is, while the civil society is pushing, the army is blocking them. While the journalists are trying to push corruption, the police is coming to close them. And yet all of us are actually fighting for the same thing.
The army is the one coming.
Okay.
The army is the one that closes you guys.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Do you think the Kigali model should be adopted in 1 minute?
I think we need all forms of solutions to this problem. And if the Kigali model is something to go by, I would certainly be for it, because we have broken down to the level that we are very desperate for anything that can bring for us solutions.
Okay, the Kigali model.
Let's build our systems. The concept of benevolent leaders is not sustainable, not predictable, and you cannot put your hand on it. Let's build our systems. Let's see how we can rectify them. So that's a bit more predictable. If you are out of the picture, the systems can support this. Otherwise, this concept of a benevolent leader is not assured. You can have a Timothy who can come and mess up the system, and you can have a Solomon who can come and create the system. So let's build the system.
No, I don't agree to it, because the Kigali model will take away the peace we are used to. Let's build our own model. We can have our own model. Let's have our own model. Call it the Ugandan model or something else. Let's fight corruption in our own way. Otherwise, we are saying the Kigali model because we don't know how it looks like. When it gets here, people will cry here. We can fight this corruption with only the political will. Let us support those who are fighting, who are leading. But like Dan said, even at a family level, you have something you want the clan to approve. Then you start saying and say, when it comes, please. So when you stop it at that, I have a grandfather, Ephraim Makumbi Yakatale, who died saying, Sewola, Siwola. I don't lend, I don't borrow. Simply say, I don't take corruption. I don't take it, I don't give it. Simple.
Interesting. Interesting. Thank you, Sir Simon Muyanga Lutaya. Thank you, Timothy Chemongi. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Derek Wandera and Daniel Lutaya. Thank you very much, guys, for being on the Media Roundtable. Quite fantastic conversations. I hope that we could continue this next week. But let's see. I'm just here for celebrations. And Muyanga here was squeezing me.
No, you cannot retire earlier than me, please. I am older than you. I'm 48, please. 10 more years here, then you retire. Why do you retire?
Let's see about that. All right, thank you so much for watching the Media Roundtable. But first things first, we want to say that if you want to send money to family, friends in Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, you can just use SendWave wallet. It's just for you. Hold and send the USDC digital dollar cash out in Ugandan shillings or Kenyan shillings anytime, and enjoy free transfer services between SendWave wallets in over 10 countries. Download the app today and fund your wallet with only $10. Use the promo code NEXT and get $5 on us. Please note that the SendWave makes money on your exchange rate. Terms and conditions apply. I'm Solomon Serwanja. Thank you so much for watching. This is the NBS Media Roundtable, and certainly it's going to be a great week of celebrations 18 years as we look back and walk back in time, going back from the time that NBS opened its doors. We will be sharing with you interesting clips of Sisr Simon Muyanga Lutaya with the late Tamale Mirundi, you know, Lilo like an envelope.
Management. Give me another
Take away this food.
We will be playing you all those clips of when we were just starting, remembering some of the fallen heroes that really established this magnificent media house. We will, you know, walk back and show you some of the highlights of how we've made it to 18 years and we have now grown. Thank you so much for trusting us to be your trusted source of news and for excellence in journalism. I'm Solomon Seranja. This is the Media Roundtable. Good morning.